Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Rowe. We're looking at Geometry Part A. This is Lesson 12 of the Pythagorean Theorem. So this is how to find one of the missing sides of a right triangle. So recall that we're looking at this formula, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a and b are called legs, and c is called the hypotenuse along the side. So we can use the Pythagorean theorem to help us figure out any of the missing sides for any right triangle. So let's take a look at what you're asked to do and how I need to see your work so you can show it. So in this particular problem, or this particular set, you're asked to find the value of c. So now if we draw a right triangle, A and B, it doesn't matter what value you put there. They're interchangeable. C is the only one that's important. C is always across from the right angle. If you draw a little diagonal in the right angle symbol, it points to the hypotenuse. So that's always going to be C. So these are going to be 8 for this first example, 8 and 11.5. So you're going to take the formula. You're going to substitute what you know. And that's squared. And then you're going to pull your calculator out. You're going to work those out. So I got 11.5 squared plus 8. Let's see what that is. Let's do this one step at a time. So 11.5 squared is 132.25. 8 squared is 64. And what we get when we add those two together is 196.25. Now that's the value of c squared. So what we want is we want the value of c. So I've got one more step to do. You're never finished with the Pythagorean theorem problem until you take this step. We're going to square root that value. So I'm going to find the square root. So on the calculator, second x squared, and the number is 196.25. And then we're going to round off to the nearest tenth every time. So in this particular problem, since we got zeros here, this will be 14 will be the value for C. So C equals 14. And that's all there is to this. That's the work. Please show all this work so I can help you if you make a mistake. Okay, so let's take a look at the other two examples. So I'm going to erase these. We're just going to use the same triangle each time. All right, so in green, we've got 5 and we got 13.1. Same process. I've got 13.1 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. Pull the calculator out. 13.1 squared let's just clear that, start over, Mr. Rowe. It's a lot easier than trying to figure out what to do real quick. 13.1 squared is 171.61. 5 squared is 25. And that's going to equal c squared. So now we're going to add these two values together. So 171.61 plus 2 plus 25 is 196.61. It's like I picked two very similar problems, huh? is the same answer. Imagine that. We're going to take the square root of 196 second x squared, 196.61. And that's going to be 14.02. Remember, we're going to round to the nearest tenth, so that's going to be about 14. Okay, and last example here. We've got our triangle. We've got 5 and 12. So I'm going to do this one right here. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. 5 squared is 25. 12 squared is 144. We're going to add these together. That's 169. And then we're going to take a square root of 169. If you don't know this one is a perfect square. So second x squared 169. Just so you know that some of these do work out to be whole numbers. So there you go. That's how you find one of the missing hypotenuse. So just follow those procedures. All right. Now, what happens if you're given a leg and a hypotenuse and you're asked to find the missing leg? So let's draw our right triangle again. Remember that the right angle always points to the hypotenuse, which is always C. So this first example, C is going to be 13.4. And I told you in the beginning, the legs are interchangeable, whichever we want to put them. So I'm going to put X here and 8.4 here. And so for this example, we're going to have X squared. And let's always start off with the theorem. Squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I've got X squared plus 8.4 squared equals 13.4 squared. So again, I'm going to find the value of both of these things. I'm going to find 8.4 squared. And that is 70.56. And I'm going to find 13.4 squared. And that's 179.56. Now on these problems, before you can take the square root, instead of adding, we're going to subtract. So I have to subtract the value over here with A and B. So one of these two is going to be subtracted away. So that's going to leave me with X squared. And again, if you're not sure, I'm just going to subtract those two values. That's 109. And again, you're never finished until you take a square root. So the square root of 109 is 10.4. And of course, that's an approximation. So let's look at the last example. Again, I'm going to use the same triangle. I might have space to draw a new triangle here since I'm only doing 2 examples. All right, so here's the right angle. Right angle always points to C. C is 9.4. So A is 7.7 and C is 9.4. We're figuring out X. And again, it doesn't matter if you switch those two values, 7.7 and X, that's fine. As long as you don't accidentally put 9.4 as one of the legs, you're good. So this is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Okay, we got 7.7 squared plus x squared equals 9.4 squared. Okay, pull out the calculator. I'm going to try to do this. Now we'll just do one time. 7.7 squared. That's 59.29. And then 9.4 squared. 88.36. Okay, remember on this type where you're trying to find the missing leg, you're going to have to subtract before you take your square root. So we're going to subtract these two values, so minus 59.29. And that gives me x squared equals 29.07. And again, the last step here is to take a square root, and that's a 9. Make it look like a 9, Mr. Rowe. And so we're going to take the square root. And so the square root of 29.07, second, x squared. And that's going to end up being about 5.4 rounded. Make sure you look. Since that's a 9, we're going to round this to a 4 and drop everything else. So 5.4. So that's the Pythagorean theorem. That's how you find one of the missing legs, and that's how you find the missing hypotenuse. So if you're still struggling with this content, please, best thing to do is just set up an appointment for a help session so I can sit there and walk you through and let you walk through some on your own. Or you can still message me for maybe some more videos that I can find. So let me know if you need help.